I'm going to walk you through the process of how I made this Chevron friendship bracelet. I cut 18 strands of floss at about 80 inches long. So I'm starting in the middle, and I separated it to where I have a strand matching on each side. So I picked 9 strands, some of them I doubled, and I'm doing knots on both sides, and then the center knot, I always kind of come from the right side on the center knot, but then if you'll notice, I switched the right side floss to the left, and that just helps it lay better. So when I do the left side knots, I put the floss over the top, and the strand end goes to the middle. So it's kind of, I don't know if it's hard to explain or if it makes sense. When I'm doing the left side, I lay the loopy end to the left side and so each one, the end of the strand lays towards the middle, and then I loop it over the strand that you're holding to tie the knot onto and pull it tight. So when I do the right side, I loop the loop out to the right, and the end of the strand comes inside. And then I knot the middle and flip the strands to each side. It's really a visual process, so you kind of have to watch it. It's hard to explain, or at least it's hard for me to explain. I don't know if I'm making it sound like it makes any sense. But it's a very simple, like, don't overthink it. It's not too hard. It's tying a knot. So basically your knot needs to be on the top of your project, and the strand that you're tying the knot onto shouldn't show at all. So if it does, then you need to pick it out and start again. And I'll show you how to pick it out. But right now I'm showing you when my project starts getting a little long, I don't like it to flip around. So I'm just adding another piece of packing tape, but I don't want the tape to be too sticky and make my floss sticky. So I just kind of press my hand on it to kind of get some of the stickiness off. And then I press it down to my table because I like my project to be nice and flat, especially with it being so many strands of yarn. So go over the top, and then I loop it around. And then I hold that bottom strand tight. Not too tight that you're pulling your project off your table, but. And do that exact same thing on both sides. Then when you meet in the middle, I do the right knots, and then I flip my middle strand. So here I'm showing you if you make a mistake. For the example is if you skip one of your strands, it's going to make you not have enough knots on that side. So just grab a toothpick. These are really handy when you're doing friendship bracelets. And use that pointy end of the toothpick to pull that knot out. You can kind of wiggle the floss around and put the toothpick in between the strands, and it will loosen it up just enough to where you can just pull that knot right out. So you can easily fix any mistakes that you make. I've had to do this for a row one time, and it worked just fine. So I'm trying to get to the end of my project, and I want it to look straight. So I'm going to show you how to do that. See how the middle V is a lot longer? So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to completely finish it. I'm just going to work my side colors down to where they're even. So I'm not going to tie them off in the middle. But I'm going to do it one color at a time. So now I'm going to work the next color down until it kind of lays straight. And you can see, like, pretty soon I'll grab something to see how my line is coming, if it looks like it's straight. Do a couple more rows. This is when you get to the end of your project, and if you want it to be straight across instead of have that V. So I used my toothpick, and you can kind of see on that side. So I made sure, okay, that side looks good, so I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. And now I'm going to add a little bit of glue to this just to make sure that the ends don't unravel. You might not need this step. I just wanted to make sure it would last for a long time. So I'm just kind of gluing the ends. This is a glue that you don't want to touch really, so that's why I was using the craft sticks to apply it to my floss, and I'm using a piece of cardstock to keep it from getting on my table. This glue also really stinks. It's really smelly. So I'm clipping off the ends of my yarn, or sorry, I keep saying yarn, floss, the ends of my floss now, and straight across. And then I'm going to add the end crimps. I want to make sure those corners get tucked into it. Another tip for if your corners do end up coming out of your crimp, you can just take your toothpick and kind of push them down inside on the ends. Now I'm just using my pliers, and we're going to close that crimp. Careful not to press too hard if you've got pliers like mine, because then it will leave little line marks on it. But if you have pliers that are plain, oh, this is an example of where I'm showing where if you make it too long, because we're adding a clasp on this one, and so I didn't need to make it quite as long as I made it. So I'm cutting it down. But it's handy if you make it too long, that way, because at the very beginning of where I started the bracelet, I started it with a V. So one side is going to have a V. So that's where it's handy to make it a little bit longer and cut it straight across. That way you don't have that V in your project. Like when you're finishing it off, if you're going to use these crimping ends. I just bought them at Hobby Lobby. Any craft store like Joann's or Michael's should have those end crimps. You can get them to different lengths. I'll let you know which size these ones are in the comments below. I like to use split rings when I do jewelry projects, because then I just think the split ring holds better. See, here's I'm showing you that you can use the toothpick to tuck those ends in if you have any. You can also use your pliers to help you put it on. I hope you enjoyed this project and you make one yourself. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.